Well, happy Friday to you. It is again Friday Geospatial 2.0 talk. I've got a funny title there, getting our heads out of our geospatial behinds. Apologies about that. It's a little controversial, but we'll talk about some things, some follow-up from last week actually, and a few things from earlier today. So let's go ahead and start. So I wanted just to mention, I tweeted about this in the week, but this is an excellent book. This is actually Brick by Brick, and it's the business story of Lego, and it has some real, anyone that's interested in Geospatial 2.0 should read that book. It really tells the story of how Lego went from success to failure to again to success, and there's some real lessons learned that we could learn in our industry from their journey. So I thoroughly recommend that book. I also, and this is going to be part of the theme of this talk actually, in part, I actually pushed out something into LinkedIn which was really talking about how much I'm not a big fan of use cases, at least the current state of use cases in our world, GIS and Geospatial. They feel like infomercials to me. This the reason I put this up is because I love the picture. I was just trying to, in part, I was trying to find an excuse for that picture. I really, it was interesting the reaction this tweet slash LinkedIn post got. I'm really implying they're taking what we've learned and exploring new ground. I love the fact that Geospatial 2.0 is really, it isn't starting from scratch like that implies in the picture, but it is certainly charting a new course. So, and that's kind of going to be somewhat what I'm going to talk about today. So let's move into it. Now there are certain themes I repeat, I realize that, but there's an important point to this one. I want to really provide a really good use case. So just to go over old ground, where are we today? We've really got on one side, and just above my head is the data, and then above that is is the technology. We live in a sort of a technology data-driven world. We're in large part serving a GIS and IT customer. That's our reality to today. So what are we selling? And in part we're selling the plumbing and the foundations. You know, we're upgrading things, we're configuring things. We're geo-enabling things, more to come on that in the future. So really important work. And then ultimately we're kind of delivering, we're selling map-based apps. So we always hear a lot, everyone in our industry talks a lot about maps. And you've heard my thoughts on that, focus purely on maps. But we're talking to audience A gets maps and want maps, and B, they want the plumbing and foundation. So a really solid business will continue to grow, super successful today, super successful tomorrow. I've put up there Geospatial epic fail, and this is a similar chart to what we just showed. Actually that diagram should just show the GIS and Geospatial platform piece, but we're really trying to talk now to business leaders. So beyond just the IT GIS folks, we're trying to talk to those guys and increase the reach of the technology and data. How are we doing that? We're kind of talking about the foundation and plumbing. We're still thinking we're talking to technical people. We're also selling map-based applications as well into these folks. This is a different audience. And my fear is when I say epic fail, it's a little bit of an overstatement, but what we're really doing is having the wrong conversations with these folks. We're still stuck in that mindset of having those old conversations. And I love that picture, so I had to put it in again. So we got a chasm. We're really talking in a language that these guys don't care about, nor do they understand. And I've shared some chat with Paul in Ireland about, you know, we're special. Well, we think we're special. We think spatial's special. Paul Sinnott, sorry Paul. We think spatial's special, but only we do. These business leaders have no interest in geospatial data, or indeed geospatial technology. So it's wrong for us to have these same conversations with these folks. So Geospatial 2.0, and this diagram here is an extension of really what I showed in the first picture, or the first image like this. It's really extending what I showed there. So yeah, we're still talking about GIS and geospatial data. Yeah, we're still talking about geospatial platforms, but we've added this new mix of things to the world. So, you know, we've got new sensors, we've got Earth observation data, we've got 3D data, we got analytics, artificial intelligence and machine learning. So it doesn't replace what we've got. it actually extends it. So we've got a lot of work being done in that space, which I've spoken a lot about on the technology. But I'm most interested, I have to admit, in the Geospatial 2.0 new business conversations. I do see, and as I mentioned this last week, that there are really two parts of the geospatial world. There's the advances in technology, which are enabling us to do things that we couldn't do before, and also there are these new business conversations. So let's explore that second one in this talk. Now my head's in the way, but there is a company that I worked with last year called Attentive AI. Actually, they've called themselves Attentive. They're an Indian-based company. They're a startup. They were targeting landscape gardeners with a product. I should say with a solution. And it was very interesting when I started working with them. I thought, well, that's a tough group to reach. And clearly, these are guys who run those businesses or are actually working in the field. And a lot of their work is based around, well, it starts out with measuring. So they have to go out to a commercial or residential property and measure. So whether that's snow clearance, whether that's replacing beds, whether that's turf, whatever it might be, measurement is a fundamental part of how they do their estimates. Measurements are difficult. So Attentive could have taken the approach that we've historically taken in the geospatial industry. They could have sold their solution as a map-based mobile app. They could have gone out of their way to promote the map portion of that, how important that is, as we like to do. They could also have sold the plumbing, the guts of how they were doing this work, and actually what they were using is aerial imagery and artificial intelligence. So they were very much in the sort of 2.0 world. So they could have taken that approach. Now, my question to you is, how successful do you think they would have been if they'd have spoken to that guy in that picture about those things? Not very successful. So what did they end up doing? They really were focused on improving business outcomes. That is not talking about the technology or the data or maps. That's all secondary. What they spoke about was fully automated measurements. These guys go out in the field and actually physically measure areas with tape measures, time consuming. We forgot that area, we've got to go back. Or the other way is doing manual measurements in Google Maps. You ever tried to do that? It's a pain in the neck and it's super inaccurate. So they're really talking about full automation. And that word automation was something, when I started working with them, it struck me very early on. When they were talking about who they were and what they did, I actually told them they were an automation company, which they are. And I think that when one applies AI to data, you're really automating processes. So they kind of rethought some of the things they were doing and really focused around that automation piece. But what does that automation actually mean? I mean, it's a fancy word. But in their case, and I'm not going to paraphrase what their ads are because they've got lots of different very clever ads out there, but essentially what they were talking about was 2 clicks and 2 minutes. So in other words, one of those gardeners, all he had to do was type in an address, it zoomed in on a map to that location and click estimate measurements. And in 2 minutes, results came back. So it was 2 clicks, 2 minutes automation. Now that is a business outcome conversation. That is nothing to do with technology or data. Fundamentally, Attentive are a geospatial company, but they never talk about that stuff. They talk about the outcomes. And I thought that was, when we talk about use cases, and I criticize use cases because they've become ways to sell products. How many times, if you read a use case, do you see the name of a product mentioned continuously? And it's really a way for a company to get a customer to tell you or me through a video or whatever, or however that use case is presented, how brilliant the company is and the product is. That isn't, to me, that's not the right way to do it. And I don't want to read that. I do want to read this. If you're going to tell me stuff about what the outcomes are, I'm really interested in that. And if you present it in a way that's interesting to me, oh, by the way, this is how you do it, less is best, it's a very effective way of selling. And Attentive are being very successful, and congratulations to them for their approach and what they're doing. So that was a pretty short Friday talk, but I hope I made my point there, that we really need to be focused on those outcomes and really start thinking about those business conversations. We are really good at the technical stuff, and we're really good at talking to the right people about the technical stuff, but we do a really poor job when it comes to those business conversations. So I suggest that you read that book that I mentioned earlier, Brick by Brick, which really talks about how you change your thinking, how you are not held back by history and your successful history. You learn from where you've been, you stay focused on your core, and you adapt to change and move forward. So that's me. That's a yucky picture, which at some point I'm going to get rid of when I've got something that is better. Gosh, there's a lot that could be better than that. That's my email address at Critogen. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm right. Give me your thoughts. Love your feedback. Love to integrate what you're telling me into one of these talks. But those are my thoughts today. As ever, great weekend, and we'll do it all again next week.